Hey guys, this is the Justice for All podcast. This is Randall,
And this is Gage.
and today's episode, we're going to be talking about the transgender movement as well as the Me Too movement, which are very hot topics in today's culture, as we know. And we've actually had a lot of good feedback this last week. We'll say mixed results from our abortion episode. We appreciate you guys listening, and yeah, just keep sharing the videos and tune in every week. But so Gage, do you want to do like an intro?
Yeah, sure. So, like you said, we're going to be going over the transgender movement in particular. Since it's becoming bigger and bigger within within the United States, and I guess probably around the world now. And yeah, we're also going to talk about one of like some current events that have been going on with the New York Attorney General and stuff like that as well.
Yeah, very much so. And with that, we see a lot of this, like you were saying in the news today, both things a lot. And, really with that, do you want to do the Me Too or the transgender stuff first?
We can do the transgender stuff first.
Okay, so it's actually funny. I was talking with some friends earlier, and they were telling me that like Canada or some shit, they have actually just passed a law to where like you can't call your parents mom and dad anymore and stuff, and like all these like that could be offensive words. You could be punished by law now. Like they're supposed to refer to them as parents and things like that. Like, I mean, that's not as much as like the transgender stuff, but that's just the correct identity kind of thing. And I think it all kind of plays
identity, that same category.
exactly. And I'm just thinking, it's like, wow, like, do we really want to live? I mean, come on, like, even if you don't agree with our positions on this topic, and I really I just want to present those and hope that you guys can do your research and maybe have an open mind as because I've weighed the options and stuff, and I know what I'm about to say is going to be very unpopular. But I just know that if you guys really just I don't know, it's just hard to say. It's hard to say. I just hope you look into things, and we can have a good. I hope no one gets really too offended here, but just hear us out, and hopefully that we can present data to you to whatever. Anyway, we will also weigh the other side of things as well. We're not going to just because me and Gage will probably agree a lot, but so we'll both present some counter arguments. So this is not going to be just one side. So just hang in there. So additionally, like we were saying, Gage. So with the Canada stuff, these are all things that can tie into the same thing, and the transgender thing is just another part of that. So, what would you say about your stance on this movement, or what are your opinions?
I would add too that there's other examples as well, such as Washington State passing. I believe on the birth certificates you can choose like gender Z or something like that, where you don't choose a gender for your child. And also California passed a law as well that if a doctor or somebody like that knowingly calls a patient by their, like the incorrect gender that they associate with or whatever, they can be charged criminally. And that's also the case in Canada as well, that if you call somebody, a male and they identify as a female, but you knowingly call them a male, then you could possibly be criminally charged with that. And to me, that's insane. I mean, it's ridiculous. I mean, I understand that, I'm all for, people having their privacy and everything else. Like, you can do what you want. I'm pretty socially liberal, I would say, on, quite a few issues. But whenever it starts to affect other people like that, I don't agree with it.
All right, so a few things for this. I agree with what you're saying entirely. I am on that cusp as well. My biggest problem with all this is that from a scientific standpoint, and I'm sorry, this is 100% true. I'm sorry if you think I'm a terrible person after this, but people, scientifically speaking, it's only male or female. We've been taught through that through school. That is 100% scientifically accurate. Anything in between naturally is a mutation. There's a very minute population that actually have these problems. Anything after that, like man-made, it doesn't change. Maybe from the outside, if you can even afford that, it changes for you a little bit, fine. But we have to have facts on these things. And I'm sorry, like feelings do not care about scientific facts, because if you lose the facts, you can be convinced of anything. You have to come through a scientific understanding of these things. And this is also a problem with like the thing with the military. Like, why can't trans people join the military? Because transgenderism and the military understands this. Unfortunately, I'm the one breaking this to you, but they realize that it's a mental disorder, and you cannot join the military insanely or with a mental disorder or anything like that. And I'm sorry, but that is how it's justified, because by fact it's male or female. If you really wanted to join the military, lie, say you're a male or female, they'll let you in. Until things change like that. But unfortunately, I'm sorry to say, but factually speaking, that is the truth. Now, we can go to the actual issue itself. If you wanna, if you're a male or a female and you want to transition into a female or a male, I am willing to abide. But if you want to be called she, sure, I'll call you that. But no, like, we have to have these justifications. I'm sorry, but that's true. I heard this example from Ben Shapiro, I believe, and he was using the example, if he had an uncle or a grandfather that was insane, he was like delusional, right? And he thought the phone was talking to him. Instead of people didn't just say, hey, the phone is talking to you. They didn't go along with it. They gave him pills and tried to find solutions to help him live a better life. Us telling these people that they are something that they're genetically and scientifically proven not to be isn't helping them. As a matter of fact, the suicide rate amongst these people that even transition is the same. So patting them on the back and moving along and applauding these things is not helping anybody. If we want to find a solution to these problems and stuff, it's okay to say, okay, man, if you want to do that, we can help you. But no, that this is the problem and we need to find a solution, instead of just moving it along and pretending it's nothing because it's affecting everybody else around them. And that's kind of like the nutshell of what I firmly believe with this topic. And, and a lot of these kind of things, the stats just don't matter, or the facts don't matter. And I'm sorry, people, but they do, and they start to affect people. And we're seeing that today. Gage, please talk for a minute. I'm sorry I went a little thing. That's pretty much
no, you're fine.
If there's
any
any bullshit at all, call me out on it. Tell me what
No, I agree with what you said, and the few points that I would make. Number one, I was going to bring up the suicide rate as well. The suicide rate in the transgender community is astronomically high, no matter if it's before the transition or after the transition. Even if they have accepting families and whatever else, it is in my opinion, and even in it's even in the DSM-5, which is like the psychological illness book, basically written by doctors of psychology. It's in there. It's called gender dysphoria, and it is a mental it's a mental health issue which needs to be addressed. You can't sit there and say, oh, well, it's okay and blah blah blah. Like I said, I don't have a problem with what people do in their personal lives. It's whenever it affects others is when I have a problem. And like you said, you're not sitting there promoting schizophrenia, being like, oh yeah, the voices are in your head telling you to kill yourself, all right, and blah blah blah. Stuff like that. You take them to a doctor. Get them mental health help. The second point I will bring up is especially on the left, they like to use scientific data against religion, against, like on the vaccine issue, on, many other things. But then whenever it comes to issues like this, then all of a sudden science doesn't matter. So like, they're not consistent across the board is the thing. they'll use science, they'll cherry pick science whenever it meets their views. But then whenever it doesn't meet their views, then they ignore it.
That's true. And I think I think it's just propaganda, man. Like saying that these things are okay, and even though the acceptance rate still isn't universal, these people don't feel accepted, regardless of what they do to themselves. It's just like this is just like playing into like falsehoods and like causing more problems. We're not even, we're saying it's okay, and really it's not. It's pretty fucked up. And the thing is like we're demonized for stating what's correct. I'm sorry to say, but on this issue, I'm sorry.
Well,
unless set my okay. Continue. I'm sorry.
That's okay. And you have to draw, as a society, we have to draw a line somewhere of what's okay and what's not okay. Gay marriage is fine. Fine with that. It doesn't affect anybody else. Whenever it comes to the transgender movement and they're trying to change, basically, they want you to pay for their surgeries in the military. They want to, use the opposite bathrooms, which can, cause all kinds of problems. Especially as a parent, I wouldn't want some guy going into the women's restroom if I had a 3 or 4 year old daughter. It's just, and that should be a normal thing, like a normal feeling to have, but then you're demonized for it.
Yeah, you're sexist because you fucking, or whatever, transphobic. Because you're siding with facts.
You don't want a guy in the restroom with your 3-year-old daughter with the amount of rape stories that you see on TV and like horrible kidnappings and stuff like that. But somehow you're a bigot and you're transphobic for not wanting that.
All right, so okay, I'm sorry. I thought you were finished. Keep going. I apologize.
No, you're fine. Well, and the other point I was going to bring up too is like, where does this end? And from because first it started out with gay marriage, which me and you can both agree that it's fine. I might not agree with it in my personal life, but that's your choice. It doesn't affect me. I don't care. And then it moves to the transgenderism, and then what comes next? I've seen a lot of things online recently of people claiming they're a different age. A 60-year-old man feels like he's 16, so he identifies as 16 and can date teenage girls.
Or like white women.
You have to draw a line somewhere. Like pedophilia is not okay.
Yeah, I agree. There's so much untied there. So, with what we were saying, like the gay thing is like that's definitely choice. There's no factual information that like you're born straight or whatever. It's bullshit. That's fine. I agree. That's not. Who cares? Just be happy that way. But my thing is, even the data that we have about trans people, they are still the same as regardless of like we were mentioning before, whether they had the surgery, whether they've come out even self-identifying as whatever and not have the surgery, it's the same results. And the fact that science is 100% on our side with this, like there's only male and female, and we're fooling ourselves. I'm sorry, but like I said, when it comes to like rights and things, like what you have the right to, and feeling isn't one of them. You do not have the right to feel because we have other rights in place that guarantee freedom and liberty that, doesn't, unfortunately sometimes your feelings get compromised, but it's okay because you can protest, or it's okay because you have other rights. That's the beauty of America. And the thing is, when you shout people down over factual information because of what you feel, it is not okay to me. I am sorry to say, but it is just so ignorant and arrogant. I'm so tired of this like thing that we can't realize as people. The other thing is, like you said, we need to find solutions to these things. And like we were mentioning, like you were mentioning before, you can identify as whatever now. It seems like. And I was actually watching this documentary earlier about this Rachel girl or whatever a few years back. She self-identified. She's a white woman, born to white parents, and she self-identifies as a black woman. And well, the black Americans, they were pretty upset, and a lot of them did not support that. And it's just because like they don't know the troubles or whatever that whatever, that's kind of the argument. I'm sure what problems can arise from that. right? I mean, okay,
Yeah.
okay. So we can take an example like that, and it's like that's so offensive to people, and apply this here, the same logic to here, because it's like you're not living a truthful, like you have to realize this is what you were born with, regardless of what religion you are. We know scientifically speaking, male or female, like I said, there's a lot, there's natural things to the rule or whatever, but I think it's less than 1% if it's a mutation of these people. And I even think like trans people in this country are like what, less than 5% of the population or whatever. So it's like not
it's
really
way less than that.
Yeah. That's a generous. That's a conservative number. But you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And it's like people. These are not the issues in this country. I'm sorry to say, these are not what the majority of Americans should be focusing on or anything like that. We should be focusing on things like that are happening overseas, where we're putting our money because we're getting ringed as taxpayers and fixing the system because it's broken. And even before that, the racism and the illegal problem we have in this country, we also need to address. Whether you're for or against it, it needs to be addressed because it's starting to affect the people that live here. So this trans thing isn't a big issue because it doesn't affect people as much as other things, and we just need to get down to the facts before we can have an intellectual argument whether or not this is moral or not. Because I'll tell you what, like I said a million times, and I'm always going to be like this in any argument I get into politically or anything like that, I'm going to always go with reason, logic, understanding, and facts before anything else, and then from that we can base our opinions on things, because that's what we have to back up any point we make, because that's the truth. And instead of caring about what you feel or whatever you think is right, it might not be. I'm sorry to say that, but it's just not. And I know when I say shit that might not be true or is definitely opinionated, I could definitely see the other side. Like you and I, we don't see eye to eye on the drug thing. That's definitely opinionated. We don't have a lot of information saying one way or another, but damn it, we can make, intellectual arguments. This, I'm sorry, but there's not, it's just not. I don't know what else to say. I'm sorry.
Yeah. No, I agree. And, the point that I have too, and I brought it up in other podcasts too, it opens a whole can of worms that, if you do like what Washington did and put gender Z on your birth certificate or whatever and let people decide, then, it opens up a whole can of worms later on. Say if there's criminals or something like that, they won't know who they're looking for. Oh, there's this gender Z person. It's like, what the hell does that even mean? They're like, if the cops are looking for a suspect or something like that, they don't even know the person's gender because, if they know that they're a male or a female, it narrows it down to 50-50. But if it's a gender Z person, it could be anyone. And, the same with firefighters, the same with, whatever. And honestly, I've met, different transgender people and stuff like that. And, I've noticed a trend of what they identify as changes on like a daily basis or a weekly basis.
Well, and some of them don't even care. Like some, actually, like, because I've actually had a little bit of experience myself with, interacting with trans people, and a lot of them are just like pretty indifferent, very relaxed people. They're actually some of them are even like they hate this whole thing because it's like it's making it worse for them, bringing this whole like light on. It's just like it's not helping. We need to find better solutions. That's my whole point, because like now that we're putting a spotlight on it, it's like sometimes it makes it worse. It really does. Like
yeah, and I remember, like, as my own anecdote, I guess, I remember whenever me and my now ex-girlfriend went to prom years ago, and we went there and she met up with some of her friends, and one of them was a lesbian couple. And I guess one of them was transgender or something. I didn't know. And she knew, but, not very well, I guess. And she, this girl was dressed up, in a really nice dress. She looked pretty and stuff like that. And my ex-girlfriend went up to her and, told her girlfriend, hey, she looks really pretty tonight. And this girl gets so pissed off, and she starts going, I'm a guy. I'm a guy. How could you ever say that? And stuff like that. And she's sitting there wearing, like a ballroom dress and stuff like that, having makeup and her hair done and everything. And it's like, how are you supposed to know that?
Right. And one more example I want to present, and then we're going to head to part 2 here. But so say you're at like dinner, okay? And say I'm at dinner with a trans person, and they just transitioned to girl. They gotta, whatever, but we know it's a guy, or I don't know what to say. And we can say these things like, hey, like if a waiter came by and was like, you tell the waiter, hey, see that woman over there, she's a woman with the dress or whatever, the hair done. You're not gonna tell the waiter that, hey, this is a guy, you just transition. You want to get A to B as quick as possible. So those kind of things, like if you're trying to identify in the quick sense, that's okay or whatever, just because of convenience. But so you know what I mean. And this is how it gets confusing, because if you personally know that say that girl wants to be called a guy, but to the waiter you're gonna call her a girl, she looks like a girl. If you and I went to dinner, I'm going to say, hey, can you get that guy over there? And you're a trans. I'm not going to say, can you get that guy over there? And by the way, he's in transition to become a woman. So call her. No. We're going to say, hey, there's the man with the red hair. That's my friend. So like what we need to find out is if male and female isn't it, right? We need to find out as a society how many genders there are. And whoever you ask, they can't give you a definitive answer. Right?
Mm-hmm.
They Z, Zer, or whatever. No, whatever you can use this convenience method, but that's like everyday life. And then in general, because I'm telling you, scientifically speaking, male and female, that's what we know. There's no in between, and until we can agree as a society as how many genders there are and what they are, then we can't even move forward with this. So that's where I'm at the standstill. I don't know if that was a good example, but you know what I mean. Because they talk about I'm offended, or whatever. But it's like, but I don't know. It's just a whole big thing. But anyway, this is the end of part 2. Gage, I'll let you. End of part 1. I'll let you rebuttal part 2 at the beginning. Okay, man.
Okay.
All right. This is the Justice for All podcast, the transgender episode, and the Me Too movement. Thank you.